Hey everyone, welcome to the New Populist. I'm Dave Brown. It is the 4th of July weekend. We have a 3-day weekend, which is fantastic. The 4th is on a Monday, so I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have great things planned. Life's not perfect, but we're still in America and we're still relatively free. Although, of course, the Democrats are working on that as we speak. Now, it's been about 4 months since the start of this Ukraine-Russia conflict. And the more you dig into who is behind this, the more nefarious it seems to be. Now, the mainstream media, our government would have you believe that we are in Ukraine to help these poor Ukrainians fight against the evil Russians and Vladimir Putin. We're always the good guy, Russia's the bad guy, and there's no room for any critical thinking to say, you know what, maybe it's not so black and white. Maybe both sides have something, are doing something here that is making the conflict worse, ramping it up, and that both sides have some motivations that are not necessarily good, right? But you can't say that. Russia is 100% bad, Ukraine good, United States good, and that is the end of the conversation. But as I said in other videos, I dig, I look into things, and I come up with my own conclusions independent of what our government and media would have us believe. Now, one of the people that is central to this whole Ukraine-Russia thing or conflict is Victoria Nuland, and I've talked about her before. She is the person that was caught on tape back in 2014 saying screw the EU. She was the assistant secretary of state and one of the people that was really quarterbacking the coup or the revolution in Ukraine in 2014. She was on the streets there. She was there with McCain and Lindsey Graham, talking about going on the offensive against Russia, talking to the Ukrainian military members. So she's been involved in all this from the beginning, and she's probably, I would say, the point person in the United States in Ukraine as far as having the most power to help influence policy. And again, she was on that phone call talking about who they wanted to pick to become the leader in Ukraine, the next president. So when we say that Ukraine's a democracy and we had nothing to do with it, it is so demonstrably false. We had a lot to do with it. And what we do is we dangle that money in front of countries, right? We say, okay, you do A, B, C, and D, and we'll give you this money. Of course, Joe Biden was caught on tape saying, you fire the prosecutor, then you get the $1 billion. That is how we manipulate countries that have few resources, that don't have a lot of money. We offer money in exchange for them doing what we want. And Ukraine is no different. We give them money and resources in exchange for essentially doing what we want. Now, I found a video of Victoria Nuland, and this came from the Oliver Stone documentary where he's interviewing Vladimir Putin. It's a short clip, but I want to play for you because it shows you kind of who she is. Now, she's on the street there in Ukraine, and she's handing out bread to people on the street. Now, watch this clip and just see how awkward it is, how uncomfortable. Like, you look at her and you go, wow, this person has no concept of what it is to be a real compassionate human being. So watch this very short clip of Victoria Nuland back in 2014 on the streets of Kiev.
Nuland, the Undersecretary of State for Eastern Europe, was very active supporting change in government.
Good to see you. We're here from America. Would you like some bread? Please take something. Please.
We've invested over $5 billion to assist Ukraine in these and other goals that will ensure a secure and prosperous and democratic Ukraine.
I'm an American. or I'm from America. Would you like some bread? Did you see how the old lady reacted, like just shaking her head like, what the hell are you talking about? Why the heck is the Assistant Secretary of State on the streets there walking around with a bag of bread, handing out bread to people? You notice how, again, how awkward and weird that interaction is? It's my opinion that this Victoria Nuland has, might be a little sociopathic. Just a, hi, I'm from America. Would you like some bread? It's creepy. And this is the person that's running our Ukraine policy. And when you look at the people around Victoria Nuland, she is surrounded by people who were involved in the Iraq War, helping to plan it. And of course, that war was an absolute disaster. And so I want to quickly go through some of the people right around Victoria Nuland who have a track record of failure in Iraq and foreign policy, yet these people still have power within our government, and they get backing of, you can guess, defense contractors, big oil, and even the Open Society Foundation, which is founded and run by George Soros. So if you don't know this, Victoria Nuland is married to Robert Kagan. Now, Robert Kagan was one of the co-founders of PNAC, which is the Project for a New North American Century. It was founded in 1998, and they aggressively pushed more U.S. involvement in wars overseas. And so Robert Kagan was one of these top neoconservatives who helped to plan and execute the Iraq War. So Victoria Nuland, married to Robert Kagan, who again, founder of PNAC. And now, funny thing is, his brother is also a big player in foreign policy, Frederick Kagan. Now, Frederick Kagan, he put together a report in, I think, 2006 detailing what the United States needed to do in Iraq to, quote unquote, win the war, because he's a historian, he is taught at military colleges, and he's part of these think tanks that think of a lot of dumb shit. And we do it, and it fails, and we pay the price. So his brother, Frederick Kagan, again, worked for these think tanks. And I think the think tank was the American Enterprise Institute. I got to double check that. Again, neoconservative think tank. Now, he also writes for a thing called, another think tank called the Institute of War. And now the Institute of War, this think tank comes up with these daily intelligence assessments or assessments of the war in Ukraine right now on a daily basis. And this Institute of War, it was founded by his wife, Kimberly Kagan. So you have Kimberly Kagan, you got Robert Kagan, Frederick Kagan, and we have Victoria Nuland, who are all family members, who are all neoconservatives, who are part of these think tanks, who have planned the Iraq War, the surge in Iraq, and in 2022, they're still working for these think tanks, offering their expertise. Now, the funny thing is, if you look at who funds these think tanks, again, I said earlier, it is who of international finance and energy and all these sort of things here. So, let me find it right here real quick, who the founders or funders of the Institute of, I'm sorry, I said it was the Institute of War. It's the Institute for the Study of War. And some of the contributions are from General Dynamic and Raytheon. So you have Raytheon and General Dynamic funding the Institute for the Study of War, founded by Kimberly Kagan, who is married to Frederick Kagan, who was the brother of Robert Kagan, who was married to Victoria Nuland. It is a very, very small world. And here are these people, since 2001, 2002 in the Iraq War, are still here, still backed by the defense contractors, and still involved in crafting our foreign policy, despite the fact that it has cost us tens of trillions of dollars. Not tens of trillions of dollars, but trillions of dollars over the last 20 or so years. And again, these people are still in power. Now, Victoria Nuland, during the Trump administration, because you can guess she hated Trump, she left the State Department when Trump came in, and she was made CEO of the Center for a New American Security. And this Center for a New American Security is funded by Lockheed Martin, Boeing, pretty much every defense contractor you can think of. It's funded by Chevron Corporation. But here's something surprising. When I talk about strange bedfellows, right? They're also funded by the Open Society Foundation, which is founded and run by George Soros. So Victoria Nuland is working for this think tank funded by Chevron Corporation, Airbus, Raytheon, and George Soros' group. Why are they all in bed together? Now, I've said it before in other videos, the Open Society Foundation, George Soros. Everybody knows about him, but nothing ever seems to be done about him. He has his hands and tentacles into everything around the world. And here in America, our government pretty much does nothing with him. He does what he wants. Now, it's my suspicion that the reason he is unmolested by our U.S. government is because he probably is a front for the Western intelligence. Because he donated money to Georgia in 2003 for the Rose Revolution. He donated money to Ukraine, up to $200 million to push democracy in Ukraine. And in 2015, his Open Society was banned in Russia. Because, as you can imagine, everywhere George Soros starts funding things and putting money, at some point in the future, there is some sort of revolution against the government. And the revolution, of course, is pro-West, pro-America. Now, I believe it was Myanmar, I gotta double check that, the Open Society Foundation had several members arrested by the government because the government there claimed that they were transferring money to people who were plotting a coup against the government. And of course, the Open Society Foundation said, "Oh, this is BS. This is all made up." Well, you think about it, again, everywhere they operate, we see these revolutions happen. And again, in Georgia and Ukraine, and again, they tried this in Russia, and Russia said, hell no. So I think that George Soros, the Open Society Foundation, is backed by U.S. intelligence. He is part of that effort to use, quote unquote, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, to undermine countries that we are hostile toward and where we want to install our own pro-West government. And one cherry to put on top here, we have this connection between George Soros and these organizations that Victoria Nuland was the CEO of, which is the Center for a New American Security. George Soros received a big contribution for his archive in Hungary. And it was such a big contribution that he renamed the archive in Hungary for this couple who donated the money. And this couple were Donald and Vera Blinken. And who are they? Well, they are the parents of current Secretary of State Antony Blinken. So Antony Blinken's parents gave George Soros a bunch of money, and that so much so that this building was renamed after them. And this Antony Blinken is our current Secretary of State. Very, very small world. And where were Antony Blinken's parents born? His father, actually. Antony Blinken's father, our current Secretary of State, his father was born, you guessed it, in Kyiv, Ukraine. It is a very, very, very small world. So Victoria Nuland George Soros, Raytheon, Robert Kagan, Frederick Kagan, Kimberly Kagan, all these people together. They have been operating for almost 20 years through all the different administrations except the Trump administration, which is why they don't want Trump back. And they have been having this foreign policy to install puppet governments in all these countries across the world. And one of their biggest pet projects was the Ukraine. And when Trump came into office, he started to look into it and went, why are we giving them money again? Why are we giving them weapons again? And he was ruining the party because we were trying to ramp up Ukraine because we knew at some point that Ukraine or Russia would have a reaction to what we were doing in Ukraine. And our current CIA director, William Burns, said in a memo in 2008, when he was the ambassador in Russia, he said, the Russians look at any buildup in Ukraine as a threat to their security. And if we continue with this, there is going to be a reaction in the future. Our current CIA director said that, 14 years ago now. And we're acting now surprised that Russia invaded Ukraine. It is my contention that we knew that at some point Russia would invade Ukraine, and our goal was not a Ukrainian victory, but we wanted to try to lure the Russians into a war that would be costly to them in terms of money, in terms of men and equipment. That was our goal, and it may be backfiring because the sanctions have not sunk Russia. They're making just as much money with their oil, actually even more money. They've sort of readjusted their battle plans, and they're using their artillery to keep their casualties low while causing massive casualties to the Ukrainians. Some upwards of 200, 300, 400 people a day being killed by these Russian artillery. So we have led Ukraine down this path to be slaughtered, and it's happening right now. And so these Adam Kinzingers, these Liz Cheneys, these neoconservatives who are supporting this war, they have blood on their hands. They knew where this was heading, and they pushed it anyway. And you would think after 20 years of foreign policy failure, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, that maybe, just maybe, more people in this country would go, wait a second. Are you telling me all these other things here we were wrong and we screwed up on, but now we finally got it right? And it's the same people in charge of this policy that were in charge of the Iraq policy. The same people, but this time they got it right. And they're benevolent, good people who love the people of Ukraine, even as their country gets torn apart. And there's now tens of thousands of deaths in Ukraine. And God knows how many more deaths there will be as this war carries on. Now, does that mean I support Russia? No, it does not. I hate that. You try to look at things from a different viewpoint, and the immediate reaction from people who don't think and don't want to think is, oh, you're a Putin stooge. That is, as Trump would say, low IQ. We need to be critical thinkers. And we need to question our government, not because we dislike our government. Well, maybe we do. We love our country. We don't like our government. But we look at it and we question our government because we have a colossal record of absolute failure. Why wouldn't you question our government? If you don't, you're an absolute fool. And unfortunately, we have about 40% of this country who seem to be absolute fools. But as our economy craters and inflation and our gas prices spike, maybe some of those people will wake up in time, and hopefully in November we get some sort of gigantic red wave with pro-Trump Republicans coming into office, and we can get some of that those old guard Republicans out, like Adam Kinzinger, who's not running, and Liz Cheney, who will lose spectacularly in her primary in Wyoming, which will be fantastic. Well, that's it for now. I hope I gave you some interesting information surrounding this issue with Ukraine, this war in Ukraine, and that even if you don't agree with my position here, I hope it at least gets you to think about it and to ask a few more questions. That is all I ask. Well, have a fantastic 4th of July. Take care. I'll see you next time.